Hello, everyone. I'm Christopher Kent from Sherman College of Chiropractic, and it's a pleasure to join you at the International Conference on Mental Health and Psychiatry in Amsterdam. The title of this program is Unexplained Issues in Mental Health, the Role of Vertebral Subluxation. And it all began in 1895 when D.D. Palmer, the founder of the chiropractic profession, asked a provocative question. He wanted to know why one person was ailing and his associate, eating at the same table, working in the same shop, at the same bench, was not. In other words, how could there be a situation where people who were subjected to the same environmental dynamics found themselves in a situation where one enjoyed health and the other did not? According to his son, B.J. Palmer, D.D. Palmer noted that if an atlas is subluxated, it makes abnormal the functions of the brain. In other words, if there is a misalignment at the craniocervical junction, the nerve interference produced by that misalignment can have repercussions on one's psychoemotional function. In the 1920s to 1960s, several chiropractic inpatient facilities were established throughout the country, and chiropractic adjustments to correct these vertebral subluxations were the dominant clinical services provided. This picture shows Clearview Sanitarium, an inpatient chiropractic facility that operated in Davenport, Iowa from 1926 to 1961. Clearview Sanitarium was quite different from conventional state hospitals. Rooms were described as sunny and bright, and meals included large servings of fresh vegetables from a garden. Each day, the patient was checked with an instrument to determine if there was nerve impingement secondary to vertebral subluxation, and if so, the patient would be adjusted to correct that. Clinical results were quite spectacular. Judge A.W. Ponath of North Dakota was charged with committing people to psychiatric facilities, and he noted that the cure and discharge rate ranged from 18 to 27% at state hospitals compared to 65% at Forest Park Sanitarium. Forest Park was another sanitarium in Davenport, Iowa, and you can see a picture of the judge and Forest Park on your screen. Here's an ad from Forest Park from 1942 mentioning that for 21 years, Forest Park specialized in the care and treatment of mental and nervous cases. The staff consisted of 3 chiropractors, 1 medical doctor, 1 dentist, and 36 well-trained nurses in attendance. Another interesting clinical manifestation of chiropractic care dealt with juvenile delinquents. And the Kentucky Houses of Reform back in 1932 produced a statement from S.E. Duff, who was Director of Education, who said that he noticed that there was a marked improvement in the mental and physical condition of the boys in both their schoolwork and conduct, and that this fine showing was attributable to the work done by chiropractors. In the early 1970s, Mental Health and Chiropractic was published, and this book contained contributions not only from chiropractors and basic scientists, but from 2 Nobel laureates. This was a multidisciplinary approach. They talked about the favorable results that were obtained with chiropractic care in the field of mental health, and it marked a very important turning point following the closure of a number of inpatient facilities where outpatient care was now predominant. From the 1980s to the present time, outpatient care predominates. We have case reports and observational studies, as well as some randomized trials that examine the relationship of neurospinal health to behavior. C.W. Went wrote, "The chiropractor's task is to restore the integrity of the body to normal nerve transmission. This is not mere sophistry, it's the principle that differentiates chiropractic from medicine." Here we have a cone beam CT study showing a vertebral subluxation. You can see the misalignment of the first cervical vertebra, the atlas, where it joins the skull. You can see how it's rotated compared to the other segments of the cervical region. This cadaveric specimen shows some of the areas that are particularly vulnerable to misalignment of the atlas. Here we can see at the blue arrows, the vertebral arteries. Here we, of course, have the cerebellum above. This is the spinal cord below. And at the yellow arrows, you can see the nerve roots as they emerge from the spinal cord. In 1927, in chiropractic textbook, R.W. Stephenson defined subluxation as follows. He said a subluxation is the condition of a vertebra that has lost its proper juxtaposition with the one above or the one below or both to an extent less than a luxation or dislocation, which impinges nerves and interferes with the transmission of mental impulses. Today, modern neuroscience has given us some significant insights into the neurobiological mechanisms that might be associated with correction of vertebral subluxations. One is stress responsivity. Hans Selye, who pioneered the concept of stress in physiology, differentiated eustress from distress. Eustress is positive stress. If you perceive a stressful situation as an opportunity for growth, you're in eustress, and you will have an entirely different physiological response than if you are in distress, which leads to freeze, fight, flight, the triggering of the HPA axis, and the classic stress response. Unfortunately, many people think of stress only in terms of distress or the negative, when in reality, eustress allows us to expand the scope of the human experience. And fortunately, human beings can transmute distress into eustress by changing their perception from a threat to an opportunity. To do so, one needs a nervous system that's working without interference. One way of assessing stress responsivity is heart rate variability. As we mentioned, vertebral subluxations are changes in the position or motion of a vertebra which result in interference with nerve function. Vertebral subluxations may result in altered autonomic nervous system activity. Heart rate variability is a reliable and valid tool that may be used to assess changes in autonomic activity associated with reduction and correction of vertebral subluxations. A number of studies have reported favorable changes in heart rate variability following the reduction or correction of vertebral subluxations. Polyvagal theory, proposed by Porges, posits that physiological state limits one's range of behavior and psychological experience. Polyvagal theory is related to self-regulation, resilience, and adaptability. And as we can see from Selye's work, the greater one's range of adaptability, the greater one's potential to experience all that life has to offer. Another mechanism involved is what's known as DYSAFFERENTATION. The intervertebral motion segment, in other words, the structures of the spine, are richly endowed with nociceptive and mechanoreceptive structures. As a consequence, any abnormal biomechanical function caused by vertebral subluxation may result in a change in the body's perception of itself in space and time. The neural image is the body's perception of the internal and external environment, and if that's distorted by vertebral subluxation, it may lead to abnormal function. Dysautonomia, or functional changes associated with autonomic nervous system activity, is important because of the role of autonomic systems in the actions of organs, glands, and blood vessels. Vertebral subluxation causes disturbance in the functions of the autonomic nervous system and therefore may have significant impact on biological systems throughout the organism. If we look at this adaptivity timetable, we can see that a very quick response can be had through the nervous system. Touch a hot stove, you withdraw. Shortly after you feel the pain, the neural response is very quick. With repetition, neuroplasticity may result in changes in functional connectivity as well as actual anatomical change, and this facilitates the adaptive process in that person's lifetime. Epigenetics refers to changes in the expression of the genome which are associated with environmental dynamics. As we experience life, genes are turned on and turned off in response to our lifestyle choices and the various environmental dynamics to which we're subject. Epigenetic changes have been shown to last several generations. And of course, on a larger scale, we have actual genomic change, which takes considerably longer. A number of studies have shown that there are psychological responses to changes in the spine utilizing randomized controlled trials. And in this review, they noted that there was some evidence that so-called spinal manipulation improved psychological outcomes compared with verbal interventions. Although spinal manipulation is not the same as analysis and correction of vertebral subluxation, other studies that have come to similar conclusions. In chiropractic, our objective is to provide a salutogenic approach which states that neurological processes as well as anatomical structures are remodeled by sensory input. Salutogenesis is the creation of health, and in chiropractic, we utilize a salutogenic approach to correcting interference with the function of normal neurobiology so that the body can express its potential. The implications on physical and mental well-being are profound. Thank you for joining me. I appreciated the opportunity to present, and should you have any questions, feel free to contact me at Sherman College of Chiropractic.